Imagine a world of secrets.
Right.
Where shadows hide information that's vital, absolutely vital, for global security.
Yeah, a world of spies, covert strategies, and always that looming nuclear threat hanging over everything.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into the story of Valerie Plame. She lived right in the middle of that world, someone whose life journey took some really unexpected public turns.
That's right. We're looking at Valerie Plame, a former undercover CIA operative and a real expert in nuclear nonproliferation. She spent over 20 years, from about 1985 to 2006, right on the front lines.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah, managing top secret operations against terrorists, against rogue nations trying to get their hands on nuclear weapons. Her work took her all over Europe, facing, well, unimaginable risks.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. It's easy to forget there are real people making these massive decisions. What kind of background leads someone to choose that kind of life?
Well, it's interesting. Plame actually comes from a family with a really strong tradition of public service. Her dad was in the Air Force in World War II. Her brother was a Marine, wounded in Vietnam, and her mom taught in public schools.
So service was kind of in the air she breathed.
Seems like it, that sense of duty. And, the CIA actually recruited her right after she graduated from Penn State with a journalism degree, interestingly enough.
From journalism to spycraft, that's quite a leap, isn't it?
It is, but maybe it speaks to a deep curiosity about the world.
Sure, wanting to understand how things work.
Definitely. And she deepened that global understanding with 2 master's degrees, one from the London School of Economics and another from the College of Europe in Bruges, Belgium. That academic background must have been pretty crucial later on.
So, straight from academia into the shadowy world of the CIA, how did those early days go? Did she ever share any stories about the training?
She has, yeah. She described the selection process as, well, long and intense, 6 to 8 months, just interviews, tests, exhaustive background checks, you know the drill.
Rigorous.
Very. And at one point during a psychological assessment, they threw scenarios at her to test her judgment. One involved meeting a sensitive source in a hotel room when suddenly the police knock on the door.
Okay, what do you do?
Her quick thinking was to suggest pretending they were having an affair. Apparently that impressed the evaluators. Quick thinking under pressure?
Wow, yeah. Thinking on your feet. That gives you a real sense of the mindset needed. But beyond those initial tests, where did she fit into the CIA's structure?
Okay, so the CIA basically has 4 main directorates: operations, intelligence, science and technology, and administration. Plame was recruited into the Directorate of Operations, which, as she put it, is where the spy stuff happens.
The DO, got it.
Right. And within that, in 1995, they created the Counter-Proliferation Division. This was a pretty significant shift, moving towards a more integrated approach for these big transnational threats like weapons of mass destruction.
So this division wasn't based on geography, like, say, the Russia desk, but on this specific threat.
Exactly. It was a response to emerging threats, things like the sarin gas attack in Tokyo. For the first time, you had operations officers like Plame working directly alongside intelligence analysts. They realized that synergy just led to better intelligence outcomes.
Makes sense, combining the collectors and the thinkers.
Precisely. Her role involved classic spy work, handling and recruiting foreign agents. And it's really crucial to remember operatives like Plame often work under non-official cover, or NOC.
NOC, what does that mean in practice?
It means fake names, fake job histories, often holding down seemingly normal second jobs as cover. But the critical part, it means no diplomatic protection. 0. If you're caught, you're on your own.
The risk factor just shoots way up.
Immensely. Imagine living that double life constantly with that kind of exposure. And her specialty within all this was nuclear counterproliferation.
Right. So what did that actually involve day to day? Or, well, night to night, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe. Her focus was stopping nuclear capabilities from ending up with, the wrong people, terrorists, black market arms dealers, rogue states. This wasn't just about physical security or intel gathering. She mentioned it also involved highly classified cyber operations targeting these threats.
Cyber ops too,
Yeah.
even back then.
Apparently so. Think of it like a constant race against time to prevent, well, the unthinkable.
She spent years doing this, completely in the shadows, and then suddenly, boom, her identity is out there. Can you walk us through the context of how that happened?
Yeah, the trigger was an op-ed piece in July 2003 in the New York Times. It was written by her husband, Ambassador Joe Wilson.
Okay, what did he say?
He directly disputed President Bush's claims made in the run-up to the Iraq War that Iraq had tried to buy uranium yellowcake from Niger. That was a key part of the administration's justification for the war.
And Wilson knew otherwise.
He did. The CIA had actually sent him to Niger earlier to investigate those very reports, and he found no evidence to back them up. His op-ed was titled, "What I Didn't Find in Africa."
And the fallout from that article was immediate and personal.
Tragically so. Just days after his piece ran, the conservative columnist Robert Novak published an article revealing Valerie Plame's identity as an undercover CIA operative.
Just like that.
Just like that. It was widely seen, almost immediately, as retaliation from Bush administration officials for her husband's public criticism. Political payback.
And we need to stress again, her cover was non-official. How significant is that detail here?
It's hugely significant. As we said, NOC means a deeper level of cover, more secrecy, and therefore much greater danger if exposed. Leaking the identity of any undercover operative, but especially a NOC, is a serious federal crime. It's like dragging someone working deep undercover out into the spotlight, totally vulnerable.
And there were legal consequences, right? Though maybe not quite what people expected.
That's right. While no one was ever charged specifically with the leak itself, Vice President Cheney's Chief of Staff, Louis Scooter Libby, was convicted.
But not for leaking.
No, for perjury and obstruction of justice during the investigation into the leak. He was found guilty of lying about his conversations with reporters regarding Plame's CIA employment.
His sentence was kind of unusual too, wasn't it?
It was. Libby was initially sentenced to 30 months in prison, but President Bush commuted his sentence in 2007, essentially wiping out the prison time. And then much later, in 2018, President Trump granted him a full pardon.
Plame commented on that pardon, didn't she? What was her take?
Yeah, she stated pretty bluntly that the pardon had nothing to do with Scooter Libby, nothing to do with me. She believed it was all about sending a certain message that President Trump would take care of his allies no matter what.
The personal and professional fallout for Plame must have just been devastating.
Absolutely. Her undercover career was over instantly. She was moved to a desk job back at CIA headquarters and eventually left the agency altogether in 2006.
And the story didn't end there.
No, the public exposure led to both her and her husband writing books about the whole ordeal. Those books then became the basis for the movie Fair Game, with Naomi Watts playing Plame and Sean Penn as Joe Wilson. Imagine having your secret life ripped open and then turned into a Hollywood movie.
So her life in the shadows was forcibly dragged into the harsh glare of the public eye. But her story didn't stop there, did it? She found a new path.
Not at all. She really reinvented herself as a prominent advocate against nuclear proliferation. She lent her expertise and her voice to the documentary Countdown to Zero, which really highlights the ongoing dangers of WMDs.
And this isn't just like a passive interest for her. She's actively campaigning on this stuff. What are her main concerns now?
One of her biggest concerns is the growing global stockpile of nuclear weapons, and specifically in the U.S., the fact that a single president currently has the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons offensively. She's actively lobbying to change that, to remove that sole authority.
That's a pretty huge policy debate.
It really is. Who should have the power to make a decision with such, catastrophic potential consequences?
It's a chilling thought, one person with that power. What's her assessment of the current level of nuclear threat?
She believes we are in, quote, the most dangerous moment as far as a nuclear threat since the Cuban Missile Crisis. She points out that a lot of the guardrails, the treaties and understandings we had during the Cold War have kind of fallen by the wayside.
And she's not just talking about it, she's creating platforms for discussion too.
Yeah.
Tell us about these Spies, Lies, and Nukes conferences.
Yeah, these are conferences she organizes, often bringing in former CIA colleagues and other national security experts. They dig into intelligence-related topics. Past ones have been in Santa Fe, but the upcoming one is, well, pretty unique.
Oh, yeah?
It's a Mediterranean cruise, stopping at ports with significant espionage history. Malta, Greece, Turkey. And the panels on board will even cover things like how to use disguises and how to recruit agents.
Wow, like a floating masterclass in spycraft.
Kind of. Imagine learning the tricks of the trade from people who actually lived it.
That sounds incredibly fascinating. And beyond these conferences, has she thought about getting back into public service more directly?
She did explore it. She considered running for public office in New Mexico a few years back. Didn't win that race, but she's apparently still intrigued by the idea of serving the country again in some capacity. She's also very involved with Global Zero, a major nonprofit working to resist nuclear war.
It's clear that passion for national security, and especially preventing nuclear catastrophe, is still driving her. Let's circle back to the events that led to her outing. What's her perspective on the Bush administration and the run-up to the Iraq War?
Well, the Bush administration's justification for the war rested heavily on those claims about WMDs and supposed links to terrorism. Plame's perspective, and her husband's, is that her outing was direct political payback for Wilson questioning those very reasons.
And the fact that no WMDs were ultimately found in Iraq?
Right. That only reinforced their belief that the intelligence used to justify the invasion was, at best, flawed or perhaps manipulated. It's a stark example of how politics and intelligence can get tangled up, sometimes with really significant real-world consequences.
And there was a legal battle over accountability too, right?
Yes. Plame and her husband sued several Bush administration officials. However, the administration argued that its officials were entitled to immunity in cases like this, which ultimately made the legal path very difficult for them.
Despite everything she went through, it seems like she's drawn some powerful lessons from it all. What are some of her key reflections?
She talks very forcefully about the abuse of power and the price of speaking truth to power. She also really emphasizes the importance of giving credit to junior team members, getting them exposure to senior leadership. She recalled an early chance she got to brief the CIA director.
Oh, interesting.
And felt her boss earned her lasting loyalty by giving her that opportunity. It's a great point about leadership recognizing and nurturing talent at all levels.
That is a valuable leadership lesson. Any other insights she's shared?
She's a huge believer in diverse teams leading to better outcomes. She points to the diversity, gender, ethnicity, cognitive approach of the team that took down Osama bin Laden as key to its success.
And the flip side?
On the flip side, she uses the example of Xerox failing to adapt in the copier market as a cautionary tale about the dangers of groupthink, of not having that cognitive diversity. She also stresses taking responsibility, especially when things go wrong, referencing the complex but ultimately successful operation to dismantle the AQCon nuclear proliferation network.
Her career spanned a really turbulent time for the CIA, especially post 9/11. What are her thoughts on the ethics of some agency actions then, and how she sees the current intelligence climate?
She's been very outspoken about the controversy around the enhanced interrogation techniques the CIA used after 9/11. While acknowledging it's a contentious issue, her personal view is that those techniques are absolutely antithetical to who we are as a people and also, frankly, ineffective for getting good intelligence.
And looking at things now,
she expresses concern about what she sees as daylight between the president and the intelligence community today. She worries about the negative impact that could have on national security and, importantly, on relationships with allied intelligence services. Trust is everything in that world.
Valerie Plame's journey is certainly one full of unexpected twists. From the deep secrecy of undercover work to becoming this very public figure advocating for nuclear disarmament.
Yeah, her story really underscores the profound personal and professional consequences that can flow from political actions. And it highlights the critical ongoing threat of nuclear proliferation in our world today. Plus, her reflections on leadership, the value of diverse perspectives, ethical considerations, those offer valuable lessons for all of us, I think.
Absolutely. So as we reflect on Valerie Plame's experience, it leaves us with a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it? In a world facing these increasingly complex global threats, how do we strike the right balance? The balance between national security needs, political accountability, and protecting individual rights.
That's the core tension, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And what responsibility do we have just as citizens to demand transparency and ethical conduct from our governments and our intelligence agencies? It's certainly a lot to think about, and we encourage everyone listening to maybe dig a bit deeper into the history of the Plame affair, the ongoing challenges of nuclear non-proliferation, and the vital, complex role intelligence agencies play in a democracy.